Hey all, this is Peter. I know I haven't updated the channel in a while, and things have been a little bit hectic. I've been writing 2 new books, and I'm finishing up the edits on the third and the final book in the United States of Japan / Mecha Samurai Empire series called Shogun Revolution. And there was actually a cover reveal for the book a week or so ago. John Liberto did an amazing new cover featuring the Sigma, which is the new anti-mecha mecha. And by that, I actually took inspiration from Metal Gear Solid 2, which actually, as a whole, is a big inspiration for the book. And if you've played the game, they develop these Metal Gear Rays to fight the Metal Gear Rexes, and so I really like that concept, and I was really drawn to the idea. Again, I think they kind of explored that also in Batman Begins at the very end, where if Batman shows up, then obviously these anti-Batman type figures like the Joker will show up as an inverse, like sort of a connected relationship. And in the same sense, I felt that in Mecha Samurai Empire, obviously the mechas become very prevalent and a big part of the force because they're fighting against the Nazis. And so as a sort of response to the possibility that there might be revolts or rebellions, the military develops these mechas that are specifically designed to combat other mechas. So on the cover, it's actually the Sigma, which uses like this chainsaw and also a trunk blade. And it's driven by General Pris Watanabe. And the name Sigma actually is a reference to Mega Man X. If you know the main villain from the Mega Man X series, he's called Sigma. And so again, it was a little tribute to that. Just getting into the whole idea of robots and robots fighting against each other. And so again, it's mechas and mechas fighting one another. So I like playing around a lot of times with these names and kind of just I want to pay respect and homage to the titles, games, and books that have inspired me, because I feel creatively none of us work in a vacuum. All of us are sort of building on top of each other and growing. And obviously, with Shogun Revolution and going way back to United States of Japan and Mecha Samurai Empire, they were obviously influenced by Man in the High Castle, which I've talked a lot about. How when I was looking for a new book to do, I happened to read some of the behind-the-scenes stuff of Man in the High Castle and some of Philip K. Dick's letters, and I learned that he really wanted to do a sequel, and he found the material so disturbing that he couldn't do it. So that's where I got the idea of doing a spiritual sequel. And so it's funny when people ask me, hey, were you inspired by X and X, whatever, say Pacific Rim, which is fantastic, or whatever else, I always tell them actually it was Man in the High Castle that really inspired me. And then secondary to that would probably be the Metal Gear series. And Shogun Revolution in particular, I think it has been really influenced by a lot of the questions and themes that were in Metal Gear Solid 2. Like just getting into the ideas of reality and information and just how things evolve and grow and change. When you have everything, when all the information can be digitized, and there's so much information out there, how do you kind of parse and filter what you do, and how do you even define what is truth versus reality? And so when one of the main characters, Raiden, goes through this huge dilemma where he starts realizing that everything around him might be fake and false, it's part of a simulation, he has a hard time separating and distinguishing reality from fiction. So again, these kind of ideas I really wanted to run with and kind of explore in this alternate history. And also it's my third and final time being in the universe, so in a sense it was kind of like a goodbye to it. So I really love this cover. I love everything by John. If you see the original image, which I posted on Twitter, it's pretty cool. And then Ace obviously took it and then made a very graphic representation of it to kind of stand in contrast to the Mecha Samurai Empire cover. So if you see them actually side by side, they're kind of facing off against each other. And I like that. I like how they complement each other. So for me, I would say that I kind of viewed Mecha Samurai Empire and Shogun Revolution as a sort of duology, even though there's 2 new characters and they're very different plots and different ideas. They go hand in hand, whereas United States of Japan, I would view it almost like as a prequel to them. So for anyone approaching the series, you can read any of them by themselves, And that's kind of the way I design them, because I really like how, for example, the culture books, you can start anywhere and actually they all make sense, right? Because they're all standalone. And in the same sense, Final Fantasy, you don't have to play Final Fantasy 1 to understand Final Fantasy 7, and likewise, you don't have to play 8 or 9 to understand 15. And I like that sort of freedom that gives you, because you have some of the world building in place, but at the same time it gave me the freedom and the creativity to kind of explore and do whatever I wanted to do in that world, kind of expand on it. And yeah, there are certain rules, but because they're set in different time periods too, you're not, I didn't feel as restricted. So like in the case of Cyber Shogun Revolution, it takes place 20 years after Mecha Samurai Empire, so it's a very different world. Just imagine our world right now in 2019 versus 20 years ago, right? My math is escaping. 1999, right? So yeah, so again, I'm having a lot of fun. We're finishing up the edits, so I'm working with Ann Swords from Ace Rock, and she's been fantastic. The thing with editing is a lot of times, if you work with the right editor, what they'll do is they'll bring out the story. So you have like a set of ideas and themes that you want to explore, and if you work with the right editor, that editor will know what you want to get and know what you're trying to write, and they'll help you bring it out more. Kind of like, if there's like a molding or a sculpture, you have like the general details, and what they do is they carve out the fine details and really get into the nuances of it. And that's what Anne's been doing. She actually did this fantastic edit in the last pass, kind of going line by line and describing certain scenes that needed more exploration, certain character arcs that felt that it could go a little bit further into explaining the relationships. And then again, it's not so much about saying, hey, like let's change everything, right? In which case it'd become a different book, but it's more about bringing out the book that I wanted to write. And I have to say, this last round has been so much fun. I actually really love editing, and this process has been really, really intriguing for me in the sense that I'm getting to know the characters even better. So when a lot of times you have these ideas and concepts in your head, and to you it's very obvious, but for someone reading it, it might not be as obvious. So again, it was Anne kind of saying, hey, here, I think this is what you were going for, but I think it wasn't as clear, so maybe we can try this, and and stuff like that. Or and not even like let's try this specifically, but can you think of some creative ideas and ways of showing this in this character arc rather than telling us where we're at. So I really enjoyed adding a couple new scenes in this final edit, and I felt overall it made the experience feel richer, and for that I'm really grateful. So I think we're going to do even though I called it final, we're going to do one last round of edits, and this is just me being extra cautious. For me, I think in my writing process, I actually spend more time editing than writing, because I can usually get through a first draft. When I say fast, I mean just relatively fast compared to the amount of time I spend editing. And I get to ask this question a lot, which is like advice on writing, right, and finishing a book. And for me, I think the most important thing is, first of all, identifying if this is the book you want to write. But once you have that, just letting it flow, right? It might not be perfect. It might be a disaster. It might be a mess. But the most important thing for me is to actually get through it and finish it, and get it to a point where I feel like I have something I can work with to edit and carve out, right? And even when things aren't working for me, I try to push ahead as far as I can, because a lot of times the things that don't work, I can recycle for the future. So I want to flesh out at least the general ideas, and the sort of milestones that I want to really hit thematically speaking. So even if I don't like where it's going and I feel like, okay, this is the wrong direction, if I get to a certain point, then I can just kind of bury it and then come back to it. So that's what I actually did with my new novel after Cyber Shogun, which I'll talk about another time. But that was a novel that I wrote a while ago, and I kind of finished it, and then I after Cyber Shogun was done, I kind of went back to it and I said, oh, let's re-explore this and let's get back into it. And then I have a novel that I'm very happy with now, even though, again, it's I've done a couple drafts, but it'll be the first draft that I actually send out. So so again, for now, I'm focusing on finishing the edits for Cyber Shogun, and this past week I got a chance to talk a little about Cyber Shogun Revolution and Mecha Samurai Empire to a class at Tokuha University with Professor Onitsuka, and that was a lot of fun. Even though it was over Skype, it's a university out in Shizuoka. It was for an American film and culture class, and it was cool because, first of all, I got to show a PDF, so I had a presentation plan in place, and so I got to talk a little about my writing background and my writing career. But then I also got into the works of Hideo Kojima Katoku, and just to really talk specifics about how it's influenced me and how it's been so powerful for me. So that was a lot of fun. And again, I that to me is very exciting because, again, I remember when I was in school or college and guests would come and they'd talk, and a lot of times those were some of my most memorable experiences. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to do that in reverse. So so again, that's how things are going for me. Other stuff that I've been working on, I have a Kotaku stint coming up in late August, so I'm preparing a couple games. So one game that I've been playing a lot in preparation is Romance of the Three Kingdoms 13 for the PS4. I am enjoying it, but it's so different from the previous iterations in the series that it's taken some getting used to. And once I've gotten used to it, I can see how they've evolved some of the concepts and ideas that they had in the previous games. In some ways, they've streamlined things, and in other ways, they've made things more complicated. So it's pretty fascinating. I think I like a lot of the things that they have, but it breaks it down so that it's not so much about making discrete commands, it's more about listening to your advisors, because your advisors will pretty much tell you what you should do. So you're just clicking, through it. And then they also, it used to be very turn-based. So, every month you would, go through all your turns, and then, all the other kingdoms would make their turn and then it'd come back to you. But right now it's just real time. So you're literally going through every day. And then, on the fly, you can make decisions and stuff like that. So that was a little bit confusing for me. Also, the other big thing is battles have been changed. So again, that used to be turn-based, and now it's more real-time. And I think the thing that confused me the most was just the fact that you can't draft soldiers; it just happens organically. So I was like, how do I draft soldiers? And then I just saw that it happens just whatever through the flow of time. So I guess they wanted to make it more realistic and whatnot. So that's pretty cool. So but at the same time, it takes away a sense of control over the game and stuff like that. So I'll have my full thoughts. I'll flesh it out more. The other game I've been playing a lot is Super Mario Bros. 2. So the last time I ran Kotaku, I did Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, and the time before that I did Zelda 2, so I figured I might as well do Super Mario 2 because they were so different as sequels from what came before them and what came after them, right? So except Castlevania 2, which had kind of Symphony of the Night as almost like a spiritual successor. I say spiritual even though they're in the same series, but in terms of the gameplay style, Simon's Quest and Symphony of the Night had a kind of bond. Whereas I don't think there's been any game like Zelda 2 since then, right? And same with Super Mario Bros. 2. So, so I'm kind of excited about that. So I'll be writing about that. And so otherwise, again, finishing up Cyber Shogun, and then doing final edits on my next novel, and then also working on another novel. So again, if it seems like oftentimes people are like, oh, you're writing so much, but it's because when I finish a book, so the first pass of Cyber Shogun I actually finished last year, and so we've just been doing a couple rounds of edits. So in the meantime, every time I turn in a new draft, and there's a bit of a gap before I hear back, so I've been using that time to actually write. And so I'll talk about my writing process next time, but so this is me. So all right, thanks for listening, and catch you next time.